because he's working on a problem. He's got to come up with the right answer in a few seconds.
As you can see, there's not much except he does have a head on it.
As a matter of fact, that's all he's got. So that's what we're concerned with in this film. What goes on inside
Sam's head
and yours
when it comes to making decisions.
My name is Eddie Bracken.
You know, Sam and I and all of us have one thing in common. Sam makes his decisions based on information fed or programmed into him electronically. We make ours on the basis of information we have accumulated. But there's one important difference. Sam has no mind of his own. He can't think. While you and I have experience and judgment to help us in making our decisions.
And they come into play every day of our lives. For instance, you might have noticed that I'm not wearing a collar.
No, I didn't forget to put one on this morning. Frankly, I couldn't decide which tie to pick out.
Well, let's see if I can make up my mind now.
Ah!
Here's one of my favorite. Kind of light and gay and... No, I'm going to have a spaghetti lunch at Luigi's this afternoon. I always get these light ties spotted with tomato sauce.
How about a green one?
Helen likes green.
She's my secretary.
She used to be a model. Helen has a dress just the same shade as... No, my wife Connie, she hates green, so that's out. How about brown?
Connie likes brown.
But I don't. But come to think of it, Connie's been asking what has happened to it. She's been getting pretty edgy lately. Maybe I just better wear brown. Might help keep peace in the family. Decisions. Some are important and have to be made immediately. And some require a lot of study. And some can be delayed. And some decisions are better not made at all. In civil defense, decision-making is not too different in principle than in any other situation except for one thing: the consequences, which may be human survival itself and our survival as a nation. To people who have the responsibility for making decisions affecting the lives of others, the choice of the right action presents many problems. A case in point was Hurricane Paula, one of the worst in our country's history. Both before the hurricane struck and afterwards, decisions had to be made on a variety of subjects. The magnitude and cause of the storm had to be predicted, and appropriate measures taken. One group of decisions in preparation for the hurricane was made on the basis of the winds from the Gulf of Mexico turning northward into Louisiana. When a sudden meteorological development turned the wind westward toward Texas, a whole new group of decisions had to be made. What was the most effective way to warn the people? What should they be told? Too much might cause confusion. Too little might result in a lack of action which should be taken to save lives. Which municipal departments could mobilize the most effective resources for action? Would there be time
for mass evacuation?
Should people be directed to take shelters? If so, where? What distance from the threatened coastal areas
Would be considered safe shelter?
into some of the decisions that had to be made? The decision-making elements in natural disaster are similar to those involved in a nuclear attack with two important additional elements. First, numbers of casualties and amount of damage would be much greater. And second, there would be a new hazard, radiation from fallout. These require a particular background of information before certain decisions can be made. Before any major decisions are made in civil defense planning, decision makers must consider the consequences of their proposed action in various areas. How would the decision affect life or survival of the population remaining in the post-attack period? What material resources will be left to survivors as the result of the decision? How would the decision affect the stability of the government? What would be the effect of the decision on coming generations? What would be the social effects of the decision in terms of unity,
purpose of action, and the political effects on
neighboring localities,
states, or even nations? The process of actually making a decision in civil defense is like building a pyramid. Of course, we hope it would not take that long. First, decide what the mission is in terms of what it must accomplish. Next, get a complete and detailed description of the situation that has to be resolved. This should be put together from all information available. Now consider the various possible courses of action or alternatives. At this point, consider the obstacles to each. Think of each alternative in terms of what can prevent it from working. Make a tentative decision on the basis of the facts you have accumulated. Finally, review your decision, taking as much time as the situation will allow. If it seems the right decision under all the circumstances, go ahead and make it and be prepared to stand by what you have decided. In making a civil defense decision, you can't consider every conceivable factor or you'd never act at all. There are too many variables and unknowns in the nuclear emergency. So as decision maker, you must be able to abstract from the problem the critical factors and base your decision on them. There are two major situations in which you, as civilian defense personnel, may have to make critical decisions. In the pre-attack period, when you will have time for evaluations, staff studies, and other types of estimates, and after the attack, when you will probably not have time to do anything but make immediate decisions. Let's see some specific examples of what is involved in each of these cases. The Civil Defense Director in the pre-attack period will have initiated emergency programs with officials of the various local government agencies. As a result of the decision of his head of government, he coordinates the efforts of the members of the local government as they act in their own areas to prepare for a possible nuclear emergency. Each is a decision maker. Since government acting in emergency involves total cooperation, a whole chain of decisions will result. This emphasizes the importance of the original decision maker. If he has planned well in advance and initiated proper staff studies and evaluation, he can make many decisions with confidence. Some typical pre-attack decisions might be selection of adequate fallout shelter facilities and creating a community shelter plan for protection of the population. Determination of specific assignments for the police in the emergency situation. What utilities might be called upon for help? What type of communications capability is needed for the emergency operating center? Will transportation have to be considered in getting people to shelters? In civil defense emergency, what will be the role of the fire department? Health and medical services, public works. With basic decisions like these made in the pre-attack period, critical decisions after the attack will be made with more hope of success. In every civil defense decision-making situation, alternative courses of action must be balanced against each other. In the end, the alternative you decide on will be based on your own judgment and answer mainly to the question, how effective will this choice be in getting the job done? We've seen how some of these elements are involved in the pre-attack situation.
How about decision-making?
After a nuclear attack, when action may have to be taken quickly based on the best information available. Suppose you're a civil defense director spending a rare but welcome quiet evening at home. Suddenly you are startled by a brilliant flash of light in the distance. That sound, an explosion of some kind. It came about 2 minutes after the flash of light. But was it a nuclear detonation? You should alert the mayor and the town officials. But what about fully activating the local emergency operating center if it is a nuclear attack? That means instructions should be given to the people. Should the community shelter plan be implemented immediately? Should the military be called upon for help at this time? What aid must be sent to the stricken areas? Or perhaps it would be better to delay some decisions until you have more information. The nuclear attack has been confirmed. You are in the town's emergency operating center.
There are many problems, but little
Time to draw conclusions. Emergency personnel provide you with vital operational intelligence on damage estimation
on the fallout situation.
On the basis of this type of data, decisions that could mean life or death may have to be made quickly. For example, this notation indicates the average radiation dose rate across the city is about 30 Roentgens per hour. These are the public shelters currently occupied. There is some overcrowding in certain shelters. Others can take more people. A less contaminated area lies north of the city. It would take 2 hours for motor transportation to reach it. A quick estimate of the transportation capability assures you that enough vehicles are available to take the overflow from some shelters to the less contaminated area. But each person would then be exposed to outside radiation doses for the 2 hours transportation time. On the other hand, transfer between the city area shelters would result in an average exposure time of 15 minutes per person. Possible radiation doses are computed. They must be kept to a minimum. Maximum doses are calculated for each alternative. Obviously, there would be less radiation exposure if the people would transfer between the city shelters. You decide on the transfer. Now, other decisions must be made.
How to get the overflow
From the crowded shelters
to the ones that can take more
occupants with minimum exposure to radiation.
Should you make
Transfer it to the nearest shelter that has available space.
Perhaps the direct route because of the fallout pattern for the city. What is the mission?
what are the problems? What are the alternatives?
Which alternative offers the best solution of the problem? What are the obstacles?
What will be the consequences?
Consequences of the decision. Those are the elements you will have to consider. Many of them are the same elements that had to be considered before other critical decisions in our history were made. Decision makers in times of crisis must have the moral courage to stand by the consequences of their choice. No one will ever have all the knowledge he needs to guarantee the right choice of action. Odds and percentages must be played. Judgment and experience relied on. As operational personnel in civil defense, you too may someday have to make decisions critical to life and country. To do this well, you must understand the elements involved in civil defense decision-making and be morally prepared to follow through on your decision.